This video is brought to you by Nebula. Today, Trump seemingly softens his stance on China. Ireland gets a new government, and a Libyan warlord is arrested in Italy. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Wednesday, the 22nd of January, 2025. With Donald Trump returning to the White House, China has braced for potential severe trade repercussions, anticipating heavy tariffs on its exports following multiple threats from Trump. However, 2 days into his second term, Trump's initial actions have fallen short of Beijing's worst fears, marking a potential shift in US-China relations and a possible aversion of a second trade war. During his campaign, Trump had vowed to hit China with 60% tariffs upon taking office, and later threatened an additional 10% on day one to compel Beijing to crack down on flows of precursor drugs for fentanyl. Instead, on Monday, he issued a memo directing officials to investigate the US trade deficit and recommend appropriate measures, such as a global supplemental tariff or other policies, to remedy such deficits. Trump also reiterated his 10% threat over fentanyl, which did slightly shake Chinese markets. Meanwhile, Trump's decision to impose 25% tariffs on US allies Canada and Mexico are still expected to go ahead. And in a press conference in Washington on Tuesday, Trump also vowed to hit the European Union with tariffs. So, Trump's more measured responses towards China has led some analysts to suggest that Trump's approach signals an approach of negotiation rather than confrontation. A professor at the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University noted that there's a cautious optimism that a deal could be struck. Moreover, his choice to issue a memo directing investigations into the US trade deficit reflects a strategy to evaluate long-term trade dynamics rather than immediate punitive action. Trump also hinted at a broader deal linking tariffs to the ownership of TikTok, which is currently owned by Chinese firm ByteDance. Trump has suggested that any negotiation or resolution may require a sale of TikTok to a US entity to avoid steep tariffs. Industry watchers in China suggest that such a sale could emerge as part of broader discussions, although it's still early days for any formal negotiations. Meanwhile, bilateral relations are seemingly warming. Trump had a call with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in which they reportedly covered various topics, including trade and TikTok, whilst the Chinese Vice President attended Trump's inauguration. Meanwhile, at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week, China's Vice Premier called for a win-win solution to trade disputes without mentioning the US, whilst the Canadian Prime Minister promised to fight back on Trump's tariffs. While the initial signs are promising, economists remain cautious about over-optimism. Fred Newman, HSBC's chief Asia economist, describes the current landscape as a holding pattern. He cautions that while immediate tariff increases may have been avoided, the potential for future conflict remains. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Gregory Fiesel, then consider joining the TLDR Daily Membership Program for just $1.99. Ireland is set to get a new government today that looks a lot like its old one. Nearly 2 months after the country's election, and after weeks of government formation negotiations, the long-dominant incumbent centre-right parties Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have agreed to form another coalition government, this time with the support of several independent lawmakers. Fianna Fáil leader Michael Martin will become Taoiseach, i.e. Prime Minister, a position he previously held from 2020 to 2022. Like last time, the new government will be a rotating one. Martin will remain Taoiseach until 2027, when the post will rotate to Fine Gael leader Simon Harris, who's been in the top job since April last year. Until they switch, Harris will be Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs. Last November's election was a rare example on the world stage of an incumbent government surviving, rather than being thrown out by voters. The renewed coalition agreement between the two traditionally rival parties once again shuts out the populist left-of-centre Sinn Féin, which remains the largest opposition party. Housing, immigration, healthcare and more will continue to be hot topics for the government going forward. Mali's interim defence minister disclosed that 5 Sahel nations, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad and Guinea, are prepared to mobilise a joint force comprising 5,000 troops. This initiative, aimed at bolstering regional security, is a response to the escalating violence and terrorist threats plaguing the Sahel region, particularly from extremist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Niger's defence minister said that the new force will have its own air assets, equipment and intelligence resources that will operate across the three countries, which have formed a cooperation pact known as the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. The creation of the three-way alliance followed the country's decision to withdraw from West Africa's main political and economic group, ECOWAS. During a meeting of defence ministers from these three nations, the need for collective action was underscored, emphasising collaboration in addressing security challenges. Mali currently leads this multinational effort after the withdrawal of French troops, which has previously been combating Islamist militants in the region. Though the joint force is predominantly aimed at counter-terrorism, it also reflects the commitments of Sahel nations, currently governed by juntas after a series of coups between 2020 and 2023, to enhance stability and security in a region that has experienced heightened conflict in recent years. Moving to Italy now, where a Libyan warlord has been arrested following the issuing of a warrant by the International Criminal Court. Osama Angiam, who's also known as Osama al-Masri, is the leader of the Tripoli branch of the Reform and Rehabilitation Institution, which is effectively a network of detention centres run by the Special Defence Forces, or SDF, of Libya. For their part, the SDF have been accused of atrocities in the Libyan civil war. In light of this, the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor has issued arrest warrants for these actions, including for al-Masri. It was reported that al-Masri was arrested in Turin on Sunday, after he attended a Juventus-Milan football match on Saturday. Importantly though, it was also noted that the Turin tribunal declined the arrest approval, meaning that al-Masri was released from prison and subsequently sent back to Libya. Italy has close ties to Tripoli and has energy interests in the country. Like a lot of things, this whole situation is very much in a state of flux. With us entering a new year and Trump re-entering the White House, well, the world has felt more stable, hasn't it? Every day we're faced with weird headlines, from Trump's attempts to take over Canada and Elon's wild ride in Europe, or even Trump trying to swap New Jersey for a shiny Charizard on the playground. Okay, that last one might not be real, but we do dive into the chaotic world of US politics in our series WTF USA. That's our series where we explain everything that's happened across the pond in the land of the free. Because while the election might be over, with Trump in the Oval Office, the number of WTF moments only looks likely to increase. Unlike some of our other more serious videos, the tone of WTF USA is more light-hearted, and takes something of an irreverent look at what's going on. If you're interested, WTF can be found exclusively on Nebula. Now, if you didn't know, Nebula is an independent, creator-owned streaming platform that specialises in thoughtful content. Over there, you can find creators like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, and Legal Eagle, with many of them releasing their very own original series on the platform. We're super proud of WTF USA, and we hope that with your support, we'll be able to make other interesting, weird, and entertaining series with Nebula in the future. So signing up genuinely helps TLDR to grow and expand. You can also watch every normal TLDR video on Nebula ad-free, and in some instances before they land on YouTube. If you're not a member already, click our link in the description to get 40% off. We really hope you check out the series, and as always, thanks for your support.